Cracking the whip, 2 Kenyan soldiers jailed over looting during Westgate operation. All but finished, Security Council told that the M23 is almost militarily obliterated. And rising concerns, fears abound that Mozambique conflict could destabilize region. You're watching Africa Live. Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Penina Karibe, and we have plenty lined up this hour, including these stories. Transforming Africa through information technology, African presidents commit to broadband development. And a Ivorian football star Toure says the elephant's in need of silverware as he accepted UNEP Goodwill Ambassador title. 2 Kenyan soldiers have been sacked and jailed for looting during the September terror attack on a Nairobi mall in Nairobi, while a third is under investigation. That's according to Kenya's military chief. Kenyan authorities now say investigations are at an advanced stage and are seeking more people in connection with the attack. At least 67 lives were lost in the attack, which the Somali Islamist group Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for.
After almost 36 days of accusations against Kenya's security forces, implicating them in looting among other incidents, following the terror attack at a Nairobi mall, they finally gave their side of the story.
I was the bully of the moment.
And this is the CCTV footage Kenya's military chief says has been grossly exaggerated by the media.
The KDF had left the mall.
He says soldiers involved in the operation only took water with the knowledge of their commanding officer. According to Karangi, 2 soldiers found with stolen items have been dismissed and jailed by a military court, while a third is under investigation.
And that soldier has been arrested. He is now under cross arrest, to use our language here. And should we find him guilty today, tomorrow, he will go the way of the others.
Reports of looting by the soldiers had tarnished the Kenyan Defence Force's image, and it remains to be seen how far the admission of partial wrongdoing will go in repairing the force's image. Meanwhile, investigators say they're wrapping up work at the mall and should be out of there in a couple of days. So far, the remains of 4 suspected attackers and their weapons have been found in the rubble of the mall's collapsed roof. Authorities say they're still pursuing several leads.
Once we apply for the warrant of arrest, we'll be seeking also the intervention of Interpol in terms of issuing a red notice, what we call the international warrant of arrest.
Police also say they're analyzing communications made 4 days prior to the attack. Robert Nagela, CCTV, Nairobi, Kenya.
An Al-Shabaab lead explosive expert is believed to be among the dead in a U.S. drone strike. Ibrahim Ali, together with other unidentified Al-Shabaab insurgents, was driving in a car south of the Somali capital, Mogadishu. The incident, which took place on Monday, killed at least 2 Islamist Al-Shabaab insurgents. Witnesses said the drone fired a missile at the car in the outskirts of Jilib town, some 75 miles north of the port of Kismayo in the country's south. The rebels control a vast area around where the drones track. Somali officials have not yet commented. Let's discuss this story further. We're joined by CCTV's Nina Maripos. She's live in Washington. And from Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, Mohamed Hirmoge joins us as well, live from there. What more do we know about the drone strike and its casualties, Mohamed?
Well, Penina, it's now confirmed that 2 senior Al-Shabaab members have been killed in a drone strike on Monday afternoon in the southern town of Jilib, about 75 miles north of Kismayo. Well, the government has since spoken about it later today, that is later on Tuesday afternoon. The government is saying, according to a press release from the office of the Prime Minister's spokesman has said the government does not only welcome this, but says it's part of the larger effort, international community's effort in bringing about peace and stability in Somalia. Now we understand one of the guys have been identified as Ibrahim Ali, a top Al-Shabaab explosives expert, and who is believed to have been the mastermind of a series of attacks in the northern autonomous region of Somaliland.
Now, Nina, let me come to you there in Washington. This strike comes barely 2 weeks after a similar one that wasn't that successful. Has the U.S. confirmed its involvement in the strike, and who exactly were the targets?
Well, unnamed U.S. officials have confirmed what they describe as a counter-terrorism strike, confirming that one of those people killed was Ibrahim Ali, as we mentioned earlier, who was known to be a lead explosives expert for Al-Shabaab. The New York Times has quoted a U.S. military official saying that Ali was known for his homemade bomb-making experience and also his skill in making suicide vests. So we do have confirmation coming through the media. As you say, this attack follows a strike that was effectively botched against the key mastermind behind a plot to attack the Kenyan Parliament and the UN office in 2011 and 2012. In Washington, this latest strike is being seen as evidence of the US stepping up its military intervention. But the whole question of what the White House will say and won't say about these drone strikes really cuts to the core of the debate here in Washington, with human rights activists wanting a lot more transparency on the number of civilian deaths and the number of deaths involved in these targeted drone strikes. But the White House, of course, refusing to release any actual numbers. The White House claiming that those numbers, certainly of civilian casualties, are a lot less than people think.
Right, and speaking of civilian deaths, Mohammed, there have been raging complaints over the U.S., over the use of U.S. drones, especially, like Nina said, the killing of civilians in anti-terror strikes in places such as Pakistan and Afghanistan. So how common is the use of drones in Somalia, and how are they viewed by the Somali people?
Well, it's only quite occasional that the U.S. uses drones in Somalia. I mean, we're speaking about this is the first drone strike the whole of this year. And as far as this particular drone attack is concerned, it has been confirmed by the government and other sources that the two killed were the sole occupants of the vehicle at the time of the attack. But speaking about civilian casualties, Americans have not been using drone attacks so regularly in Somalia. We understand they've been using quite a number of other tactics, including the snatch and grab commando-style operations that they have used just 3 weeks ago in their botched mission to capture one of Al-Shabaab leaders in the town of Barawe, just a few kilometers from the capital here. The government, America has also used bombs hurled over from the shores. Quite a number of times we've seen Americans attack that are not only drone attacks, but we have seen them come through the shore and launch their missiles from ships within the shores. But as far as the government is concerned, the government does not cite or question the fact that there were civilian casualties concerned. Neither did the civil rights activists over here talk about that. Therefore, and as far as we're concerned, the people here are not talking about that.
All right, Mohammed Hirmoge live for us there in Mogadishu, and Nina Ma reports live in Washington. Thank you both for joining us. African Union high-ranking officials have been meeting in Cote d'Ivoire's commercial capital, Abidjan, to promote security and stability on the continent. The meeting aims at bridging the divide between the policymakers and the practitioners. This summit provides the platform for outreach for AU's efforts on peace and security on the continent. Some analysts have accused the AU of not being proactive and failing to resolve the many conflicts that keep plaguing the continent. Well, let's take our first break this hour here on Africa Live coming up. All but finished. Security Council told that the M23 is almost militarily obliterated, and raising concerns, fears abound that Mozambique conflict could destabilize the region.
We follow the latest trends in global politics, economics, culture and sport, and how Africa fits into the global picture. You decide what's important.
We need to trade justice.
Africa's future will be determined by Africa.
For women's equal opportunity, for a better life.
We have to change something, and it's not the outsiders.
Talk Africa, a new voice for the world.
Renewed clashes in the DR Congo's North Kivu province over the weekend have pushed the M23 rebel forces out of their major stronghold, including Kiwanja, Ruchuru and Rumagambo, the biggest military bases in eastern DR Congo. The Congolese National Army, backed by the UN Intervention Brigade, managed to kick the rebels out of town, but also suffered the loss of a Tanzanian peacekeeper while capturing Kiwanja town. CCTV's Alan Cheror has more.
Fighting between the M23 rebels and the DRC army has flared over the past few days, resulting in the death of one UN peacekeeper and displacement of several hundred Congolese. The renewed clash came hot on the heels of the suspension of the peace talks in Uganda a week ago. The UN mission in Congo, MONUSCO, reported that the situation in North Kivu remains tense, but the fighting between the M23 and the Congolese army had stopped, with the Congolese National Army taking control of Rumangabo, Kiwanja and Ruchuru town, the rebels' de facto capital. The rebels, however, claim they were not forced out of their territories, but left peacefully in order to open a door for dialogue.
We have opened a door to enter inside. The door is the door of dialogue. And the world doesn't want to enter in that door. But now, to withdraw from Ruchuru, we say, let us open it more bigger, so people will enter. But the world doesn't want to enter in that door. And what I can tell you, what I can assure you, the M23 is still strong. And if they don't want to enter in that door, they will see that M23 is strong.
The renewed fighting now threatens to worsen the severe humanitarian crisis of at least 800,000 people who have fled their homes in DR Congo since the M23 launched its rebellion. There is a state of uncertainty here at the Uganda-DRC border, with most of the residents moving back and forth through the border points, most of them torn between looking after their property in DRC or going to the refugee camps in Uganda. 36-year-old mother of 5, Sylvia Rumumbe, is one of those fleeing the fighting. She has walked 10 kilometers from her home in Buheza to seek refuge at the Ugandan border.
We saw many soldiers coming and helicopter firing. We couldn't tell who is who, so we decided to run here.
The M23 fighters launched their rebellion last year and in November briefly took control of Goma, a strategic city along the Rwanda border. The rebel group is made up of hundreds of Congolese soldiers, mainly from the Tutsi ethnic group, who deserted the National Army last year after accusing the government of failing to honor the terms of a deal signed in March 2009. Alan Cheror, CCTV, DRC.
Meanwhile, a day after a UN official told the Security Council that the M23 was now all but finished militarily, the group has defended what it calls a withdrawal from key positions. Lawrence Kanyuka, an M23 media attaché in Kampala, says the group pulled out to avoid civilian casualties. The UN Security Council has condemned the fighting and called on both parties to return to the negotiating table. The M23 rebel movement claims their constant presence in Kampala indicates willingness to solve the conflict peacefully. Talks between the two sides collapsed after the DRC delegation pulled out following disagreements on a proposal for amnesty and integration of the rebels into government forces.
The international community needs to give a straightforward message. If it is a war, we go for war. If it is a talk, we go for talks. We sign ourselves a ceasefire. The Congolese government never signed a ceasefire. So in this case, they ask us to come for talks. We're coming for talks. Is it like a double standard?
Former Cote d'Ivoire President Laurent Gbagbo must remain in detention at The Hague, pending a possible trial on charges of crimes against humanity. The International Criminal Court has ruled. The ICC Appeals Chamber rejected an appeal by the ex-president that he should be released while awaiting trial. The ICC has yet to confirm the charges against Gbagbo for his role in the bloody election standoff nearly 3 years ago that claimed at least 3,000 lives. Gbagbo was captured in April 2011 when Ouattara's forces, with French and UN backing, overran his heavily fortified compound in the Ivorian capital Abidjan. He was transferred to the custody of the ICC 7 months later and has been held in the ICC's detention unit in The Hague ever since. Reported fighting between government forces and Renamo-affiliated rebels in Mozambique is worrying foreign investors responsible for the country's promising economic growth. But although reports on the situation in Mozambique always focus on the nation's booming economy, its population remains extremely poor, as CCTV's Guy Henderson reports from Beira.
A penthouse view from the Grand Hotel. Abandoned on the eve of independence, reclaimed by a very different clientele. "5,000 residents surviving in the shadows of an economic boom." Take the occupant of Suite 309. 24-year-old Kimbo has known no other home. We're the forgotten people, he tells me. The government imagine we don't exist. They speak about employment. People here don't have employment. No running water or electricity. A home only for those with nowhere else to go.
You can just imagine what this place might have looked like in its heyday. Well-heeled Portuguese expats walking down what would have been a carpeted stairwell, perhaps for drinks in the posh reception area. But now look at it, it's literally a crumbling relic of that past and a symbol of neglect.
And yet wealth pours through here. This is one of the main arteries of a major resource boom.
If we compare now to 10 years ago, I can say that Beira is feeling intense economic life based on several factors. It's risen because of the port and because of the coal and other mineral discoveries. They are using the port, and that has brought a new dynamic.
It's making some very rich, but, say opposition politicians, not all.
A população está muito zangada porque, primeiro é que
the people are very angry. 20 years of peace and all we can see is political terrorism. There is no effective distribution of resources for the people. A small group in government is keeping the wealth for themselves.
não há distribuição equitativa das riquezas em Moçambique.
Few are poorer than those at the Grand Hotel. Their voices all but forgotten. Guy Henderson, CCTV, Beira, Mozambique.
Renewed fighting in Mozambique is keeping its western neighbour on high alert. Zimbabwe depends on the Mozambican port of Beira for its imports. Fears are high that escalating hostilities in Mozambique could disrupt supplies and adversely impact Zimbabwe's economy. CCTV's Farai Mwakutuya reports.
Zimbabwe has a very bad memory of the civil war over its eastern border. The country was forced to deploy troops to safeguard its main artery to the outside world, the Beira corridor. So the recent violence in Mozambique has set the alarm bells ringing.
Any help which they request, whichever, Zimbabwe is ready to consider. And that may include, if need be, our re-engagement at a military level in Mozambique.
The leader of the opposition, Morgan Tsvangirai, says Zimbabwe should stay out of it. But business leaders here are also worried.
We have more than 1.6 billion liters of fuel coming via Beira. We have more than 200,000 of tons of wheat, which is 3/4 of what the country needs in terms of our bread and other starch requirements. We also have key inputs like fertilizers, agricultural inputs, machinery and everything else coming into the country via Beira.
Alternative ports at Dar es Salaam and Durban are farther and more expensive. Rerouting to them cannot be done overnight. Mozambique's vast coal deposits are also seen as a potential solution to Zimbabwe's power shortages. Newfound coal deposits in Tete have also led to the development of 2 new ports there.
It means that Zimbabwe will have another alternative northern corridor to the world market. So we really would want to have total peace in Mozambique so that the country can continue to on the trajectory of development which has been the hallmark of Mozambique in recent years.
Zimbabwe is also concerned about the potential humanitarian fallout. More than 2 million Zimbabweans need food aid. The country is ill-prepared to handle any influx of refugees. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take another break, but don't go far. We'll be back with plenty more.
Make major investments in China.
Why we are living for?
That's a fundamental
position on China's by leaders.
I think it's frustration.
Political change and human rights. Don't you think
Dialogue. Ideas matter.
Four days after Madagascar went to the polls and vote counting is only about a quarter of the way through, the Independent National Election Commission has until the 8th of November to deliver the provisional result of the island's first presidential round. The election has been widely praised by international observers who deemed it free, fair and transparent. CCTV's Clementine Logan reports from Antananarivo.
The Independent National Election Commission is still counting votes electronically. It's been somewhat slow progress, hampered by the hacking of the official website on Sunday night, which saw fake results posted online, but which didn't affect the counting process itself. While international observers say that the time taken to tally these results isn't cause for concern, local media has already begun speculating over whether the Senate will respect that 8th of November deadline to deliver the provisional result, given that roughly a quarter of the total polling stations across the country have been completed. Now we're still waiting for results to come in from the major cities, including the capital, but what we can see so far is that Dr. Jean-Louis Robinson, the official candidate of ex-President Marc Ravalomanana, is still in the lead with about 26%, and still in second place behind him is former Finance Minister Eri Rajao Neriman-Pianina with about 15%. Analysts say their positions are unlikely to change and that no candidate is expected to get that 50% needed to be declared an outright winner. And both candidates have already said that they have qualified for that second round. Come that time in December, international monitors say they expect to see an improvement in voter registration. The Senate's due to reopen the electoral register for those who couldn't get their names on the list in time. And there's already talk about those political alliances that we might see formed in the second round as those two camps, essentially representing the former and current powers of Madagascar, face off. Certainly people here feel that when they do, the stakes may be somewhat higher. Clementine Logan, CCTV, Antananarivo, Madagascar.
Now, this year marks the 50th anniversary since China started sending medical teams to Africa. Chinese teams are currently working in 43 African countries and contributing with crucial expertise. CCTV correspondent Julie Shah was in Zambia and visited the Chinese-built Levi Mwanawasa General Hospital in Lusaka and spoke to the Chinese medical team.
Inaugurated in August 2011, it is the first general hospital in Lusaka and has eased the pressure of the century-old university teaching hospital. Built by the Chinese government, it is aimed at helping Zambians, and it is improving their health system. It has 159 beds, treats 2,600 patients, and delivers 260 babies each month on average. Of its 455 staff, 11 are Chinese, all from the Henan province. This Chinese medical team has brought invaluable expertise and uses advanced medical equipment that only the team knows how to operate.
The biggest contribution, especially of the current team, is the fact that on the team there are 2 radiologists. And Zambia as a country at present we only have 1 who is stationed at the University Teaching Hospital. The 2 of them that are here really are making such a major contribution because they are able to operate our CT scan and provide reports to the rest of the country.
I have been working here as a radiologist for almost 2 years now, and I have really enjoyed it.
Among other specialists are physicians, gynecologists, surgeons, nurses and dentists. Dr. Shu Lianbian is one of the dentists, and he told us about his experience in Zambia.
We have a very good team here, and I like helping Zambians.
China-Zambia Health Cooperation has the potential to bring huge benefits to the lives of millions of Zambians. And that is precisely what this medical team does. Even though this medical team faces new challenges every day, they are determined to help improve Zambia's healthcare system. Julie Shire, CCTV News, in Lusaka, Zambia.
Well, let's now catch up with the latest in Biz News, and Rama is here with that agenda.
Thank you very much, Benina. Here's what's coming up on Biz Africa tonight.